In our modern day, we pride ourselves on knowing more about the world than ever before. And indeed, it's true that the fields of science, technology, and medicine have achieved extraordinary milestones. However, given the fact that we're sending people into space and eradicating diseases that once meant certain death, we shouldn't forget one fact. Mysterious events are still taking place on our globe that nobody can explain. The breathtaking incidents that we present to you today have always been an insurmountable mystery. What's with the disturbing missing persons cases? Before we get started, be sure to hit that like button and ring the notification bell for more videos. What's the background of those occurrences that appear to be out of this world? Stay tuned and make up your own mind. Walter Collins. There's hardly anything worse for a parent than when their child suddenly disappears without a trace. American Christine Collins had to live through this painful experience. In 1928, her 9-year-old son Walter didn't return home and remained untraceable in the months that followed. The events that were to unfold afterward again resembled a disturbing conspiracy story. But first things first, on the morning of March 10, 1928, Christine Collins' world was still fine. That day, she'd given her son some money to go to the cinema. However, after the film had been over for several hours and Walter simply didn't appear again, the worried mother became anxious. Eventually, she contacted the Los Angeles Police Department to report her son missing. The officials immediately began investigating and followed up on hundreds of tips from the local population, but the missing child remained unaccounted for. After 5 endless months of mounting public pressure on the police, Christine finally received the news that she had been waiting for. Walter had been found. However, when the relieved mother then took a look at the child that the police officers handed over into her care, she shivered because this boy was not her son. Under the immense pressure to finally solve the missing persons case, the responsible police captain talked to Christine until she agreed to take the stranger's child home. However, it wasn't long before the mother turned to the officers again and asserted that this boy simply wasn't Walter. Even though Christine's statements were backed up by dental records and her friends, police refused to admit they'd made a blunder. Captain Jones stated that the confused woman was only trying to ridicule the officers. What's more, the police officers said that Christine had completely lost her mind and had her forcibly committed to a psychiatric hospital. The corresponding instruction was given under the so-called Code 12, a term used to describe a particularly difficult or annoying person. To restore his public reputation and confirm his story, Jones interviewed the mysterious child. To the dismay of the police captain, however, the boy admitted during the conversation that he was not Walter at all. In fact, his name was Arthur Hutchins. The 12-year-old had run away from his home in Iowa. When the lonely boy was picked up by the officers shortly afterwards and asked if he was the missing Walter, he answered yes after a moment's hesitation. The prospect of going to Los Angeles into a new home had just been too tempting for the runaway. Based on this information, Jones grudgingly felt compelled to release Christine from the mental institution. The rehabilitated woman then filed a lawsuit against the police department. She won the case and was awarded $10,000 in damages, which Jones never paid. If we fast forward to 1929, Canadian Gordon Northcutt was charged with murder. The so-called Wineville chicken coop killer was suspected of kidnapping, abusing, and murdering several children. After being targeted by investigators, Gordon and his mother, Sarah Louise, were arrested by Canadian police and extradited to the United States. During interrogations, Sarah finally made a statement that made Christine's blood run cold. She claimed to have killed the missing Walter Collins. However, whether this statement is really true or whether it had a different background is still hotly debated. Because of the confession, Sarah was able to escape the gallows and got away with a life sentence. Her son Gordon was not so lucky. Since the court found it proven that he'd brutally murdered 3 boys, Gordon was hanged on October 2, 1930. However, because Walter's body was never found, Christine Collins believed until the end of her life that her son was still alive. However, the mother was never able to hug her boy again. Walter Collins remained missing. Bennington Triangle. What events really took place in the legendary Bennington Triangle? What caused several people to disappear without a trace between 1945 and 1950? What is certain is that the most adventurous legends have always been associated with this corresponding area in the U.S. state of Vermont. This is where the inexplicable events of the Middle Rivers story began. On November 12, 1945, then 74-year-old Mitty Rivers went hunting, an outing from which he was never to return. The elderly gentleman had set off into the mountains with 4 other hunters. On his way back, he broke away from the group and was never seen again. The only clue to Mitty's whereabouts was a single shotgun shell that was discovered as part of the unsuccessful search for clues. Probably the best-known missing person victim from the Bennington Triangle is Paula Jean Weldon. A year after the mysterious Mitty Rivers incident, the 18-year-old went hiking there. During her outing, the student was seen by many other walkers, including a Bennington Banner employee and an elderly couple. The couple later stated that the young woman walked a few meters in front of them on the path and turned at a bend. But when the couple reached the same bend only a few moments later, Paula seemed to have disappeared from the face of the earth. After she hadn't returned to campus in the evening either, the authorities launched an extensive search operation. But despite the FBI's involvement and the promised $5,000 reward, no one was able to find out what became of Paula. According to some rumors, the student emigrated to Canada with a friend or lived as a hermit in the mountains from then on. However, due to the lack of evidence, such assumptions don't go beyond the status of speculation. Soon after, military veteran James Tedford became the 3rd person to join the Bennington Triangle's mysterious missing persons list. He disappeared on December 1, 1949, exactly 3 years to the day after Paula was last seen. Before this mysterious event, James was living at the Bennington Soldiers' Home. After paying a visit to his relatives in St. Albans, he wanted to take the bus home. According to some witnesses, James was still in the vehicle before the last stop. The unbelievable. At the end of the journey, James' belongings were still in the luggage rack, but there was no sign of the man himself. Lurency Venom. Lurency Venom was born in 1864 near the town of Watseka, Illinois. When the girl was 13, she suffered a series of seizures, during which she often lost consciousness. Lurency recounted many times having been in heaven and seeing some family members who had died. As the seizures became more frequent, the doctors treating her concluded that the girl had lost her mind and that Lurency should be committed to an insane asylum. However, a neighbor and staunch spiritualist managed to persuade Lurency's parents not to send their daughter to the psychiatric hospital. Instead, they should have their child examined by a spiritual doctor, a man named E. Winchester Stevens. After examining the girl, Mr. Stevens came to an amazing conclusion. In his opinion, Lurency was the most remarkable medium he had ever met. As a result, she was able to ascend with her spirit to heaven and visit angels. According to Stevens, Lurency frequently spoke in different voices and took on the personalities of a wide variety of people. For the spiritually inclined doctor, it was clear these were the spirits of the deceased who had possessed Lurency's body. This included the soul of Mary Ruff, whom Lurency had allowed to reside in her body. Inexplicably, Lurency was able to name all of Mary's family members and tell detailed stories from their childhoods. Since the accounts seemed to agree with the truth, even Mary Ruff's parents were convinced that their daughter's spirit dwelled within Lurency, which is why they even allowed the girl to live in their house for a few weeks. The Van Meter Visitor. Van Meter is a very small town located in the U.S. state of Iowa. While the town may not have too much to offer from a historical standpoint, it's certainly been the home of many unexplained mysteries throughout the years, and this particular mystery has been highly debated for more than a century. Back in 1903, a man named Eugene Griffith claimed that he woke up one night after he noticed a very bright light shining into his bedroom window. The light never went away, so he decided to get up and investigate. Upon doing so, he noticed that the strange light was coming from the top of a nearby building, and it was directed straight at his window. He said that some things seemed off about the light, so he decided to grab a firearm to protect himself in case things went south. After returning to the window, he noticed that the light appeared to be coming from some sort of creature. As the creature moved, he said that it appeared to be a strange bat-human hybrid with a light that had been mounted to its forehead. The following night, another sighting of this strange creature occurred. This time, a doctor by the name of Dr. Alcott was awoken in a very similar way. A light had been shining through his bedroom window, and it wouldn't go away. As he looked out his window, he too saw the strange-looking bat creature with a light on its forehead. He couldn't see much else of the creature since the light was so bright, but he grabbed his firearm and began taking aim at the creature. He fired 5 times and claims he hit the creature each time. However, his shots had no effect whatsoever. At this point, the doctor was super freaked out and decided to go back and hide in his house. He never saw the creature again, but he certainly didn't ever forget what had taken place that night. After news of the creature had begun to spread around town, one man named Clarence Dunn decided to keep watch and try to get to the bottom of the mystery. Clarence refused to believe that a mysterious, unidentified creature was terrorizing the town. Instead, he felt that this was the work of a clever team of burglars. At around 1 a.m. the following morning, Clarence heard a strange gurgling noise outside of his front door. As he opened the door, the light shone brightly upon him. He, too, had now seen the mysterious creature, and it was everything that the other 2 men had said it was. It stood about the same height as a human, but it had large wings and a bright light on its forehead. Clarence decided to fire at the strange beast as well, but his shots also had no effect, and he was at a loss for what else he could do. The following morning, Clarence walked around outside of his house, hoping to find evidence for what had taken place. As he looked around, he found a set of 3-toed footprints. He decided to take a plaster cast of the prints so that he could show them to the other people in town. Unfortunately, over the years, these casts have been misplaced, and no one has been able to find them since. Over the course of the following 3 days, several more sightings of this strange creature were reported, but things only got more bizarre from there. The first sighting was from a local store owner. According to the man, he noticed a strange creature perched on top of a telephone pole and believed that it must be the same creature that everyone had been talking about. This time, the store owner fired a weapon at the beast and managed to hit it directly. However, rather than recoiling or running away after being struck, the man said that the creature began to release a very foul odor that radiated throughout the area. After this happened, the creature took flight and flew in the direction of an old coal mine that was located just outside of town. It had been rumored that the creature must have been living in the mine, which may have also explained the foul odor. This is where the case finally takes its final strange turn. It didn't take long for locals to begin hearing strange noises coming from the mine. mine. Several people were called in to investigate, and they confirmed that the odd noises were, in fact, coming from very deep within the mine. A small team decided to search the mine further, and they found the creature responsible. Its description was just like everyone had claimed. However, it was now accompanied by another identical creature, albeit a little bit smaller than the original one. Several of the team's members had weapons with them, and they began to fire at the unidentified monsters, but it seemed to have no effect, just like everyone had said. In the end, the group fled the mine and never returned. After spending some time debating what they should do about the situation, a decision was made to close the mine forever. No one knows for sure whether or not the creatures are still in the mine, nor does anyone know if the creatures are even still alive. However, locals insist that the story is 100% true, and the events remain unexplained to this day. All right, folks, now it's your turn. What do you think of the mysterious events we brought to you today? We're already looking forward to your comments. Give us a thumbs up if you liked our video. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click the bell to stay up to date from now on. Thank you for your interest. Have a great one, and see you next time.